Your Excellency Dr. Jose Ramos-Horta, President of Timor-Leste and Nobel Peace Prize Laureate and delegation. Your Excellency Dr. Paul Payne, Senior Minister of the Royal Government of Cambodia, Vice Chairman of the Supreme National Council for Education of Cambodia, PUC Founding Father and Chairman and CEO. Dr. Jia Sam Jantan, PUC President, Vice Presidents, Ambassador, Deans, Associate Deans, Professor, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to PUC. Without further ado, I am honored to invite His Excellency Dr. Paul Payne, Senior Minister of the Royal Government of Cambodia, Vice Chairman of the Supreme National Council for Education of Cambodia, PUC Founding Father and Chairman and CEO, to deliver his welcome remark. Dr. Paul.
Your Excellency Dr. Jose Ramos-Horta, President of Timor-Leste and Nobel Peace Prize Laureate. Your Excellency, Madam, distinguished diplomatic corps, national and international honored guests, ladies and gentlemen, faculties member and students assembly. First and foremost, on behalf of the PUC community, we have immense pleasure and honor to host His Excellency Dr. Jose Ramos-Horta, President of Timor-Leste and the 1996 Nobel Peace Prize Laureate, as our distinguished keynote speaker today. Today, we are delighted to have this auspicious occasion and opportunity to hear his peace-striving experience for Timor-Leste. I feel very honored and profoundly grateful for his kindness in coming to share with us his invaluable experience in peacemaking at our university. Please allow me to briefly mention a little bit about our Pannasastra University, and we call it PUC. Since its inception, PUC commits itself to the promotion of world peace, where peaceful solutions are encouraged to find answers to all forms of conflict. That's the reason why we established at our university a Peace and Conflict Study Institute, which includes 5 countries as members of this institute. The program was initiated and first sponsored by the government of Japan. PUC firmly believe that it is through education that people can live in peace and harmony with one another. According to the Lord Buddha, war or conflict come from nowhere but human nature, and mind defilement, which are greed, hatred, and ignorance. These 3 evil thoughts manifest themselves in bodily, verbal, and mental action. They are the root causes of all war and conflict. Therefore, it is man who creates world war or world peace. With this belief intact, PUC has been keen to promote peace, starting from individuals. This creates an idea that when there is inward peace in individuals, it contributes to peace in family. When every family is at peace, the community is peaceful. When the community is peaceful, it assures the peace in society. When a society is peaceful, it leads to peace in the nation. When a nation is peaceful, it brings about peace in a region. When the whole region of the world is peaceful, the whole world will enjoy and live in peace and harmony. Peace begins in our heart and mind. The same concept is shared by the preamble of UNESCO, which states that since war begins in the mind of man, peace can be likewise reconstructed in the mind of man. Man is more complex than animal, where this uniqueness lies in his potential to overcome ignorance, to overcome greed, to overcome anger, and experience and exercise perfect knowledge and wisdom. Therefore, the main objective of education at PUC is freedom from all forms of bondage, material and spiritual. To concretize the goal of freedom and to promote peace, an individual has to use his cognitive and its full potential with his or her own effort, keeping oneself strictly to the path of freedom. The path is comprised of the 3 stages, which can be seen in our PUC motto, Sila, Samadhi, and Panya, meaning high morality, insight, meditation, or concentration, and wisdom. Students at PUC have to undergo a rigorous training in moral behavior, training their mind on essential things, and controlling their body and mind properly, making them experience wisdom. These form an integrated whole and are not merely theory, but a practical way of life, a process of living leading to the goal of freedom. Peace cannot happen in this world without the practice of tolerance. To be tolerant, we must overcome anger and greed, as our Lord Buddha teaches us. No enemy can harm one so much as one's own thought of craving, hate, and jealousies. I hope that today, historical gathering at PUC will contribute the shared experience and our common goal in fostering world peace and solidarity for the benefit and happiness of all sentient beings in the planet. In closing, I would like to leave you with this humble thought. Man has forgotten that he has a heart. He forgot that if he treats the world kindly, the world will treat him kindly in return. May all beings be always happy. Thank you so much for your attention.
I thank you very much, Dr. Kopin, for your warm welcome remark. And now we are going to hear an overview of the 3rd ASEAN's event series, Bridges Dialogue Toward a Culture of Peace. Please allow me to introduce the speaker, Mr. Uwe Morawetz. Mr. Uwe Morawetz is an artist, promoter, networker, facilitator, and producer, and the founder and chairman of the board of directors of the International Peace Foundation, a non-political independent foundation under the patronage of 21 Nobel Peace Prize laureates based in Vienna. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Uwe Morawetz.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, friends, is Dialogues Towards a Culture of Peace. Bridges is facilitated by the International Peace Foundation, a non-political and non-religious foundation, under the patronage of 21 Nobel Peace Prize laureates, including His Excellency President Dr. Jose Ramos-Horta, based in Vienna. The events are hosted in cooperation with various local partners and institutions, including the country's major universities, and I would like to thank the Pannasastra University of Cambodia for hosting our event today. Since November last year, more than 50 Bridges events with a total audience of 20,000 participants, mostly students, have been continuously held in Cambodia until today, involving the participation of Nobel laureates for peace, physics, chemistry, medicine, and economics, as well as other keynote speakers and artists, including Hong Kong actor Jackie Chan, Hollywood film director Oliver Stone, and world-renowned pianist Vladimir Ashkenazy. The third ASEAN series of Bridges is an independent contribution to the Decade for Culture of Peace and Nonviolence, which was initiated by the United Nations General Assembly. It follows a series of 350 Bridges events, which the International Peace Foundation has already hosted in Thailand, the Philippines, and Malaysia since 2003. 39 Nobel laureates, as well as 18 other keynote speakers and artists, including Dr. Hans Blix, the Reverend Jesse Jackson, Vanessa May, Jesse Norman, the late Dame Anita Roddick, and Dr. James Wolfenson participated in these events. In Thailand, they were presided by Her Majesty Queen Sirikit and Her Royal Highness Princess Mahachakri Sirinthorn, and they reached an audience of 120,000 participants. This peace cannot be achieved instantly, but is a process which needs time. Bridges has not been organized as one single conference and then everything is over again and forgotten, but as an ongoing series of events in which Nobel laureates and international decision makers have built strong bridges with leaders in all parts of society and with the general public. With the basis for peace being education and synergies being the fruit of cooperation, the International Peace Foundation has not realized bridges alone, but has carried out the program together with UNESCO and 112 other national and international institutions, including 53 major universities and schools. The multidisciplinary and pluralistic approach of Bridges in Thailand, the Philippines, and Malaysia, and of the events in Cambodia reflects that peace involves all parts of society. It involves awareness and social responsibility of politicians, the business community, scientists, artists, and the media. And since peace within ourselves, our families, and our environment starts in our minds and hearts, it involves every one of us. In this sense, Bridges challenges us to cross borders and to build bridges by listening and opening up to other viewpoints, by generating new thoughts, by developing innovative forms of cooperation, and by fulfilling the desire of everyone to get to know and to learn from each other. This can lead us to a world in which we will be able to understand each other and the complexities we face today in a new light. The globalized world needs broad strategies for change, for a sustainable future for us and the next generations. So let us be inspired by the knowledge and wisdom that Bridges continues to offer, an opportunity to get a more inclusive, interconnected, and comprehensive view of ourselves and of the world in which we live in, and which we are able to create a new constantly through dialogues towards a culture of peace, which need the participation of everyone. As the Bridges series now comes to its close in Cambodia and will be continued in the years ahead in other ASEAN countries such as Vietnam, Indonesia, Laos, and Brunei, I thank His Excellency Dr. Jose Ramos-Horta, the Nobel Peace Laureate and President of the Democratic Republic of Timor-Leste, who has agreed to come to Cambodia to support the events. We now look forward to his keynote speech and to his important contribution to build bridges. Welcome, Your Excellency, Dr. Jose Ramos-Horta.
members of the diplomatic corps. It's a great honor, a pleasure to be here in Phnom Penh, in Cambodia. I confess that I don't have a prepared text to share with you. Whatever I will say will be off-the-cuff remarks with the inevitable rambling set of ideas on a theme that is necessarily complex and long. But before I address the theme of promoting culture of peace, non-violence, allow me to share with you first, as I couldn't do otherwise, being the president of my country, to share with you some facts about the situation today in my country, because it's actually fitting with the idea of promoting culture of peace and non-violence in the world. Today, we are at peace with robust economic growth for the last 3 years, average double-digit growth, but still with enormous challenges in modernizing our administration, making it functional, responsive to the needs of the people, delivering basic services to rural areas, improving the performance of the government, the ministries, strengthening the judiciary, rule of law, modernizing our small police force and defense force, make them sensitive and responsive to the people. All these are part of the lengthy process of nation building and state building. But at the same time, as we undertake these tasks for the past 7-8 years, since transfer of sovereignty from the United Nations to the Timorese authorities in 2002, we have had also to deal with healing the wounds in the country among divided individuals or divided communities in the previous 24 years, but also normalizing relations with the Republic of Indonesia. So you can imagine the monumental challenge and task that we inherited. 8 years in the life of a family, a university, is very short. 8 years in the life of a country, a nation state, is even shorter. So for this, we beg understanding for our shortcomings. But Timor-Leste today is at peace, strong, robust economic growth, and actually if you look at the Economist booklet, the pocketbook of 2010, you will see that we have the highest surplus budget against GDP in the world, almost 300% surplus. Second is Libya, 30-something%. So we are, but that is derived from oil and gas revenues that fortunately, by design of God, was given to us on the day when we acceded independence in 2002. In May 20, 2002, the very first day of independence, we signed a historical agreement with Australia in revenue sharing of one major gas and oil field called Baikunda, whereby we get 90% of the downstream revenues and Australia 10% of the revenues. In 2002, our budget, the budget that was managed by the first government, I don't know the budget of this university, but I know the budget of many other universities around the world, in the United States, in Australia. Yes, definitely our budget was much smaller, many times smaller than Harvard University budget, for instance. Our budget was $68 million. It was with $68 million that the Prime Minister at the time and his cabinet, I was Foreign Minister, had to meet even the modest expectations of the people. Because sometimes we hear academic, journalistic jargon talking about high expectations of the people in the post-independence. Actually, the people don't have high expectations. They ask for clean water, they ask access to school, medical care, maybe electricity, maybe transportation. These are not high expectations, these are modest and normal. But what was heartbreaking is that even these very modest expectations, we were not able to meet with $68 million budget. In 2004-2005, oil revenues began to come in, but still slow, modest. And only by 2006-2007, oil price went up, and suddenly our petroleum fund, which was created in 2004-2005, which we were expected to reach a few $billion in 20 years, in only 5 years, it reached what we thought we would reach in 20 years. It is with this budget from oil, mostly from oil and gas revenues, that we attempt to finance the building of infrastructures, roads, bridges, a new port, airport, improving, modernizing our agriculture to ensure food security, but also doing what I always argue. A few years ago, I was telling the then Prime Minister, he was pleased with how our petroleum fund was getting fatter and fatter. But I said, as our petroleum fund gets fatter because of the increased oil price, commodities, other commodities also go up in the cost. People start feeling the cost of increased oil price, and you must find a way to transfer some of this cash into the pockets of the people. At the time when I argued for direct cash transfer to the poor, it sounded like a heresy. At least some international multilateral institutions would not agree with that. Doesn't sound good economics. But this is what we began to do in 2008. In 2008, we began to transfer every month $20, but payable every 6 months, to every person over the age 60, every handicapped or vulnerable person, on top of widows and orphans. This year, this money went up to $30. My argument at the time was that not only this was a moral obligation on our part, but it would make sense economically. My argument was that it was immoral to let our petroleum fund manage in New York by a fund manager in US Treasury bonds, safe, no doubt, average, modest but good interest paid into the account from the investment in US Treasury bonds. But we needed to do much more than that. Our law required us to use only 3% of the revenues from the investment of the petroleum fund in US Treasury bonds. The law does not allow us to spend more than that, unless the government is able to present to the parliament specific concrete projects to be funded by the petroleum fund above the 3%. I propose that we do make good economics by transferring cash to the people. My argument was, if we give $20, $30, I was arguing for more. I argued for $40 to $50 a month for anyone over the age 55, which was consistent with our life expectancy, which today is close to 60. But the parliament, the government agreed, 60 years and $20 and now $30. My argument was, if you give $30 to a poor lady, barefoot, she is not going to immediately rush to Bali, to Singapore, to do duty-free shopping, to buy lipsticks and expensive perfume. They would immediately spend the money in buying more vegetables, eggs, chicken in their communities. So money would be injected into the local rural economy. And this is what's happening. Tens of thousands of people who never saw money in their lives suddenly began to receive $30 a month. And I commend my government for the extraordinary effort they did in only few months, involving community leaders, district administrators. They were able to identify people around the country and deliver the money. I travel extensively throughout the country. Constantly, I stop along the way whenever I see an elderly person, lady, walking down the dirt road. I ask, mother, that's how in Timor we treat an older person, father or mother. Mother, are you receiving that $30 from the government? Almost all of them say yes. And I ask, and what do you do with it? She would say, I buy some kaleng. Kaleng is a Timorese word for corrugated iron to fix my home. Or I buy some extra rice for my grandchildren. These are all efforts that we make to rebuild the country, to bring peace to the country after 24 years of occupation, and then following occupation, our own internal problems. Healing the wounds among the divided communities. Healing the wounds within our defense force, between the defense force and the police. The Road to Peace, I have a TV program called The Road to Peace and National Unity. It's a monthly program, pre-recorded anywhere in a remote village, engaging hundreds of people in dialogue. And today I'm pleased to say that the program is almost like an utter failure, because the theme is the road to peace and national unity. People are supposed to engage with me in discussions about the notion of peace and unity. They are supposed to give me ideas. I give them ideas about how to promote peace. The moderator attempts to lead the people towards the thing, but zero question coming from the audience or comment about peace and national unity. What do they ask? They tell Mr. President, Father President, how about a road to my village instead of road to peace? And we are at peace here, so what they're talking about? We want a road here. We want water. We want electricity. We want schools. So I've been doing this program now for well over a year, and still not one single question has come to me about how to promote peace. But this is positive, because 2 years ago, wherever I spoke, in the parliament, in the villages, all the questions were, when are you going to bring security to us? When are you going to put police here? When are you going to send the army here? Why the United Nations police is not here? Today, not a single question deals with that. But this does not mean that peace has been consolidated in the country. It is much longer the road than this. People with no patience, people who are always in a hurry, or who do not have time to listen, to sit down and listen to the common people, to the youth. They are not destined, they don't have the vocation to build peace. In countries, particularly post-conflict, where there is trauma, there is wounds that you don't see in the body, but you can see in the eyes, in the face, you can see in their soul. It requires much more sensitivity, patience to heal. My program is very therapeutical in this regard, but also I work with youth in the communities. Over a year ago, we launched a program called Dili City of Peace. And where did I launch it? I didn't launch it in a workshop hosted by the United Nations. I didn't launch it in an international conference. I launched it in a place called Bekora, one of the more problematic neighborhood of Dili, the capital. And who were the audience? Not academics, not diplomats, or government officials. They were people mostly barefoot, unshaven, unclean, members of gangs, martial arts groups, and of course some student leaders as well. I put a simple challenge to them. We will build a city of peace, but it will be you who will build this city of peace, because the city is more yours than mine. I live comfortably. I have a security. It is you who have to build peace from within your neighborhoods. But you cannot build peace only with speeches as inspiring as they may be. You have also to address some of the basic needs of the poor, because some root causes of violence has to do with poverty, with land dispute, with housing dispute, with the feeling of alienation and dispossession. So, part of the program, I challenge the youth in the neighborhoods who used to fight each other and often burn their rivals' homes. I challenge them to build homes for the poorest in the neighborhood. I said, I will not decide who will be the poorest. You will identify. I give you the building material and cash to build a home. And that's what they did. We have built dozens of homes in the poorest neighborhood. It is these gangs, these individuals who build. Very simple. Each house costs $2,000. And what was the definition of the poorest person? The definition is, I told them my definition, which they agreed. Someone who sleep under the stars. He look at the stars every evening. Might sound romantic, but can be uncomfortable when it rains, and sleep on the wet dirt floor. But they were the ones who identified the poorest. And on top of this, together with the government, we try to improve the lives of the people throughout the country. And this is what leadership is all about. And this is part of peace building, peacemaking. It cannot be only workshops, conferences. We, in each of our own society, you students in Cambodia, wherever you live, you can build peace in your communities. First, within your homes. There cannot be domestic violence in our midst. A home has to be the most sacred, the safest. A child or a mother cannot feel unsafe in their own home. The road to the school must be the safest. The school has to be the safest. And when the child listens to the bell ringing, time to go home, he or she must be excited in going home. Because some children are scared of going home. Because home is hell. And this is not all still. We must also show compassion to the poorest. in our neighborhoods. I asked the audience at the time, when I launched the campaign, whether any of them had ever helped a blind person crossing the street, whether they ever invited a very poor old man sitting on the road into their home offering a meal. This is what peace is all about. Has to do with humanity, has to do with compassion, with solidarity. Peace is not an abstract concept. It's not only absence of war, absence of violence. Peace has to do also with us showing understanding towards what in many communities called illegal migrants. You might be surprised to hear that poor East Timor now also has many illegal migrants. And I always use the word illegal in quotes because I don't like the word illegal. Calling on a human being, you are illegal. What does that supposed to mean? Illegal on this planet? I know, illegal in my country, we have immigration laws and all of that. We have migrants, illegal, from Bangladesh, from China, from mainland China, from Indonesia, the largest numbers, and even some all the way from Africa, from Nigeria particularly. As I drive sometimes around town, I see some faces that easily recognizable as from Bangladesh. And who they are? They are already building a shop, usually furnished shop, some restaurants. And I think of the extraordinary contributions of migrants throughout history. The US is what it is today, thanks to migrants. First from all over Europe, and then from the rest of the world. As I lived in the United States and traveled throughout the US over the years, some 30 years ago, some of the most startling encounters that I had was going one place to another, like going to one of the most famous hospitals in Boston, the Eye and Ear Hospital in Boston, and who was the chief surgeon in that hospital. I thought I was going to meet an elderly person, Anglo-Saxon, blonde, blue eyes. It was an Indian in his 30s. I just remember his name was Dr. Thomas. Very good looking, young, in his 30s. He was the chief surgeon in that prestigious university. And many more experiences like that throughout the United States. And I tell you, if today Guatemalans, El Salvadorians, Mexicans were to stop working in Los Angeles, particularly the ladies in Los Angeles would not know what to do with their lives. Los Angeles would paralyze. And that means we are in a globalized world where each individuals, communities perform functions that are necessary to keep this engine going around the world. In Australia, about 10 years or 15 years ago, maybe 10 years, I was in Melbourne and met with the then new mayor of Melbourne. I was pleasantly surprised to meet the new mayor. He was ethnic Chinese, first generation post-Tiananmen, speaking English with Chinese accent. 20 years earlier, he would never have been elected mayor anywhere in Australia. The society changed in Australia. And they were able to elect in that very big city an ethnic Chinese as mayor. And this I explained to my people in the neighborhood to counter some of the ramblings about illegal migrants. I tell them, illegal migrants don't take jobs away from anyone. Don't believe in this propaganda. They invent, they make up jobs for themselves. They create jobs. And this is all part of the culture of peace Because if you do not have a tolerance, respect towards an unknown person from somewhere in the world coming to your country, do you really have the sentiments, feelings, commitment to building peace? Can there be reconciliation with your proclamation of peace, but at the same time say, yes, peace, but not with these people from elsewhere? So this is what I explained in my own country. Now moving to maybe a bigger picture, although I believe what I say might more or less applicable in most situations. I end my remarks here today with the challenges that Asia face. This is a follow-up of some remarks, a speech I made in Singapore, December 17 at this Institute of Strategic and Defense Studies. I don't remember even the exact title, but it was something along the lines, Challenges and Opportunities for Asia. While undoubtedly Asia today offers the greatest promises, it has almost 50% of the world population, the largest concentration of wealth. It also has 60% of the world's poor. But it is also one of the most dangerous regions of the world. The most nuclearized region of the world is Asia. Pakistan, India, North Korea, China, not to mention those with aspiration to have a bomb in our Asia region. And on top of this, you have a historical, deep-seated, some decades-old border disputes that often have flared up into open warfare between neighbors. And then you have some religious extremism that translate into violence, not only in Asia, but from Asia gone elsewhere to Europe and the United States. So you have a combustion of wealth, disparity, extreme poverty, religious extremism, and nuclear weapons. When President Barack Obama gave a speech in New York in September on a nuclear-free world, I met with him in the course of those days twice, brief social encounters. And as I was sitting in the Security Council chamber, listening to that very inspiring, eloquent speech, my mind veered towards the borders of Pakistan, Afghanistan, India, North Korea, and I thought, what a task he has thrust on himself. That evening, even though I was very sick, I had bronchitis, the doctor had diagnosed me with bronchitis. But because I had gone to New York, paid a ticket to go to New York, and I stayed in a very cheap hotel because I refused to pay the horrendous prices that New York hotels impose on presidents and prime ministers during the General Assembly. I stayed in a single room, and I said, I'm not going to, I'm paying $400 a night, must be the cheapest for any head of state, and you stay in the room. It would make no sense. So I kept on going to the UN. Maybe in the process I passed on my bronchitis to a few people. At least my US Secret Services, they all got my bronchitis, because after 2 days I saw all of them coughing. And I was embarrassed. I wouldn't look at them in their faces. But they were very polite, they wouldn't say anything. But when I met President Barack Obama, I said, President, you cannot fail. He looked at me and said, we will work together. I haste to clarify that he did not mean working together with me, little me, but he meant in his very, typical approach in developing partnerships with countries around the world. It is with this partnership between the powers that be that maybe some of the vexing issues that affect Asia for so many decades may be resolved or reduced in their seriousness, gravity, and intensity. This month, coming month, May, the United Nations will hold a so-called conference review of the Non-Proliferation Treaty. There was a meeting in Washington a few weeks ago of 40 nuclear powers. Will President Barack Obama succeed in his vision to force partnerships to address some of these global challenges? Well, he will succeed if Asian leaders live up to our own responsibilities. 50% of global population is here, 60% of the world poor, the greatest concentration of nuclear weapons. Because of the huge demographics that present Asia with great opportunities, but also with great challenges, it is also our responsibility. And it is on the issue of climate change that I believe Asia can take center stage and lead. This is what I have discussed with another little country, the President of Maldives, Nasheed. I don't know if in Cambodia you people know much about Maldives. A bit over 1,000 islands, 200 of which inhabited, absolute paradise. I went there by coincidence on Valentine's Day. Well, it was pure coincidence. I asked to see the President Nasheed of Maldives urgent, and he agreed on Valentine's Day. He didn't know what was, it was Valentine's Day. But the very cynical media in my country immediately speculated that why he go to Maldives on Valentine's Day. Well, my companion was our foreign minister, a male person, the Minister of Environment, a male person, my advisor here, not exactly my idea of spending a romantic Valentine's Day in Maldives. We were there to discuss how these two countries can push for an Asian summit on climate change to move away from the confrontation in Copenhagen that led to the debacle. Although many diplomats tried to put their best face to it, it was a failure. We were not able to live up to our responsibilities. And I clarify, I was the only probably head of state who was not there. I didn't go to Copenhagen. Because back in June, in a speech in Geneva, I had anticipated that it would fail and why it would fail. So we propose that Asia take center stage, leadership, build a consensus, an Asian consensus on climate change, sustainable development, poverty eradication, illiteracy eradication, using the resources that exist in Asia. And then invite everybody else along. I do not believe that there can be a binding agreement in Cancun, a binding treaty. But why it has to be always a binding treaty? Following the classic traditional models of international conferences, we always say a binding treaty. Why not a voluntary pledge by each and every country, each country saying, we are prepared to go this far. Back with money from Asia, an Asian fund to support adaptation, mitigation, reforestation, but also other related issues like poverty, illiteracy, research in renewable energy. It will be the first time that Asia take leadership, center stage in an international multilateral forum in a constructive manner. This is a unique opportunity for China, for Japan, for the Republic of Korea, for India. I refer to the major Asian powers. I had a discussion with Prime Minister Toyama in Japan. This is a unique opportunity for Japan to build bridges with China, with Korea, and vice versa. Together, working with India, forge a strong Asian consensus. And this is part of peacemaking. Maybe through a consensus on climate change, working together on a common purpose, common agenda, facing this common challenge of climate change, we might see relations in East Asia, relations in Asia improve, and then move to the next stage, resolving border disputes and the nuclear weapons problems. Last but not least, to end my comments, I cannot fail to pay tribute to all of you Cambodians, coming from where I come from, a country with similar tragedy like yours. In 1975, the problems in Timor-Leste began, lasting 24 years. Almost 200,000 people out of population of, at the time, less than 800,000 died in the following 5 years. We were a footnote of the Cold War, a footnote of history. You were a sideshow in the Vietnam War. And the tribute I want to make and what impressed me is also similar to the attitude of the people in Timor-Leste. I don't know much about Cambodia. This is my third visit, and every visit has been brief, but I have read enough. In spite of the tragedy of the past, from what I've been able to read, there has not been cases of lynching, of murder, of anyone suspect with involvement in the past crimes. In meeting with so many Cambodians over the years, I have not found this profound hatred that I found in the Balkans when I was there 10 years ago, invited by the Organization of Cooperation and Security in Europe to visit Bosnia. One of the most uncomfortable lectures I ever gave in my life was in Bosnia. Talking about peace, reconciliation, oh, they were angry. I found myself to be totally out of place. I pay tribute to you, to the Cambodians, for your courage, your resilience, not in forgetting the past, because we cannot forget the past. Even smaller things that happen in our life, we cannot forget, obviously. How can we forget tragedies that we felt on ourselves? We in East Timor-Leste, we do not forget the tragedy that fell on us. I come from a family that lost many brothers and sisters. And only 2 years ago, I almost lost my own life. Having negotiated with the rebels, and the rebels said I was the only leader in the country they trusted. In the end, I was shot. But for the people of Timor, it was a turning point. The moment I was shot, all violence stopped till today. So I know what suffering is, what violence is, and that's why I pay tribute to you and to my own people. In the past 10 years since our transition from referendum to independence, 8 years of independence, there has not been one single case of revenge killing. There have been killings because of land dispute, the political crisis, but nothing related to the past of Indonesian occupation, or nothing related to or conflict between people who support independence and those who oppose independence. Not a single case. And that's why I tell our people, yes, my dream of Dili, a city of peace, is realizable, because you have shown in your heart how you are capable of forgiving even your worst enemies. I thank you. God bless you.
I thank you very much, His Excellency Dr. Jose Ramos-Horta, for your inspiring speech. And now I'd like to invite you to remain on stage for the Q&A session. For this, I'd like to invite Dr. Tron Gilbert, Dean of Faculty of Social Science and International Relations, to moderate the sessions. Thank you, Dr. Tron.
Thank you. Your Excellency, distinguished representatives from other countries, PUC leadership, faculty, staff, students, PUC, members of the general public, it is a great honor for me to participate in this particular program and to act as moderator of this session. In order to make it possible for the maximum number of people to participate, I would like to propose, or perhaps even lay down a few ground rules. Some people like to make statements before they ask questions. Unfortunately, we don't have time for that here, so please, no statements, just ask you direct questions. Secondly, some people like to ask 2, 3, or 4 questions. Again, we need to accommodate the full house here to give as many people as possible a chance. 1 question per person. And the final point, when you ask a question, please state your name, the organization you are associated with, if you are a student, the school you go to, and the program that you are studying. Without further ado, I'm opening the floor for the first question. Dr. Wright.
Mr. President, thank you. I just would like to ask, I know Timor-Leste is attempting to gain admission into ASEAN, and I would like for you to maybe address the issue of how ASEAN can play a role in what you were talking about, building a culture of peace and development within this region. Thank you.
Timor-Leste is geographically on the footprint of Southeast Asia, and by virtue of our geography, it has been accepted by all ASEAN leaders that Timor-Leste is eligible to be the 11th member. This has been politically agreed by all, as communicated to me already some 3 years ago by President Susilo Bambang Yudhoyono of Indonesia. And Indonesia, in fact, has been one of our best champions, advocates of our membership in ASEAN, which tells about the level of our reconciliation and relationship. They have